This video is going to be a second in-depth look at the Rams offense under Sean McVay, specifically under center Jill ISO play from a particular formation. As an aside, I'm in the process of examining offenses and defenses from the Rams and Chiefs in preparation for a regular season that is slowly getting closer in an attempt to understand parts of their schemes ahead of their week one matchups against the Ravens and the Lions. I did produce a long form examination of the Rams offense overall with what I believe to be some significant patterns, tendencies in terms of formations, basically under center compared to shotgun alignment by the quarterback, and some of the favored schemes that Sean McVay relies on out of each. I'll link that video up in the description. This one is going to detail what I call a Jill ISO concept, where the Rams use a wide receiver as a lead blocker, but on an insert path. So I'll try to talk about where do the Rams run it, when, and why, maybe. Are they successful with it? Meaning, what are their yards per attempt? I think the answer is yes. I don't think that McVay is using the concept to hit home runs. I think he's using it to hit singles and the occasional double and set up home runs. I don't have complete data, to be honest with you, on it. I will show you how I track data for the Ravens and the Lions, but on the McVay front, in terms of the offense, something I touched on in the previous video, when you control so much of the defense in terms of the personnel, the Rams are so often in 11 personnel, you're going to elicit the nickel by the defense on almost every snap, a 4-2-5 from a personnel standpoint. Occasionally you get a 5-1-5 from certain teams like the Giants, but you get easy confirmation about player location and alignment because you, the Rams and McVay, you know where some of the bubbles will be in the defense. And here with this concept, they are taking advantage of a bubble that is there by alignment. So the run concept is very similar to something out of an older offense that some of you may have never heard of or have no experience with. It's a play called belly out of the wing T. Not down, but belly. I'll get into some of the similarities conceptually and show a diagram from a blocking standpoint. But what I want to do here is show a few complementary plays later in the video off of the Jill ISO concept. It could be duo, it could be inside zone, it could just be dive. But the complementary plays I'll show just to illustrate why I think this play works so well, specifically because McVay is threatening both sides of the field with multiple concepts, and the defense has to be honest by alignment. And finally, I'll look at some of the motions that McVay and the Rams use to try to create more space off of this for this concept to work successfully. This one is going to be the best example to start with because there's no motion. Now, there is a shift pre-snap by the tight end and then by Cooper Kupp. The ball is on the left hash. First possession of the game, I believe, against the Ravens. 11 personnel like always. This is a formation that I would call ace. Now, in the wing tee, I believe they're going to call it red or blue. You have the tight end and the wing down here to the boundary in the form of Nacua and the tight end, I believe number 84. And that's a key point here, is that it's a nickel personnel grouping by the Ravens. So the nickel defensive back, safety, slot corner in some defenses, Kyle Hamilton in this case, is to the field. He's away from the point of attack. That's a key point if you ask me, because the Rams' 11 personnel, when the ball is on a hash, guarantees where the nickel will be. It also forces the edge defender, outside linebacker, if you will, to be in a 9 technique. I'm talking about Odafe Oweh here. Now, occasionally you'll get the teams that'll smarten up, and the Ravens actually did this later on in the game, where they'll flatten stance this guy and put him almost head up on that tight end to basically not allow him to open up this gap. But you can see the insert nature of it. Puka Nacua stepping to the inside smoothly. In this case, going up to get the frontside inside linebacker. I suspect because the front side safety is just too daggone deep to impact this play at all, it ends up being a 5-yard gain. But back to the edge defender, in this case, Odafe Oweh. He has to line up in a 9. He has to. And that sets up the angle for the tight end to step out here. This is all controlled just by the personnel. To the boundary, there is no nickel defender. He has to be the force player. You do have a corner set up to the outside as well. So you could theoretically spill it to that guy. Most teams do not until they start getting beat on this concept. And I find it to happen often. At this point, I have 8 games of the Rams. So to the corner. They're forcing the corner to get involved with the tackle. This happens to be Marlon Humphrey, who is a capable tackler. He didn't have a great season in 2023, primarily because of health. But By using this personnel group, this formation, and then this technique, the Jill ISO by Nakua, who is the Z receiver here, you are leaving the corner unblocked intentionally and forcing a corner that normally is a secondary force player to the outside to step up to the inside and tackle inside the C gap. Queen eventually does toss Nakua to the ground, but look, Nakua is a willing blocker in these situations, and he's capable. The Rams are also not comboing here with the front side guys. So we're talking about the guard and the tackle. Why? They don't have to. They can just straight double him because they're going to step inside with the wing, Z, Nakua, whatever you want to call him. So because of his ability to go do that, they don't have to double or combo up to Queen. They do get to Roquan Smith, the backside guy. I think this actually should have been a 6 or 6.5 yard gain, but they had it labeled as a 5 yard gain. But the downhill nature of it should be clear to us from this angle. The conflict to the boundary in the alignment, hopefully I've explained it to you well. I think this is a foundational play for the Rams to attack to the boundary. Same formation and play here. Rams tight end wing to their left, the bottom side of the screen. Look at the alignment that you've got now by the corner, totally changed. And the safety, Marcus Williams. This is also a 1st and 10. Now the running back cuts this one back here. I think the Rams are getting the look they want, the 3 and the 9 to the tight end wing side. It's pretty much what you have to give them in a 4-2-5 alignment. Again, the nickel safety is Hamilton to the field, away from the point of attack. So what I'm referring to when I say the 3 is the 3 technique defensive tackle here, and the 9 technique Odafe Owe. The Ravens have clearly caught onto the game here, rolled the corner up. I'm intentionally waiting to show some of the complementary plays until later. You still get the Jill ISO insert by Nakua. You kind of lose his helmet here, but he's going to get Humphrey because Queen is stepping to the other side. Now, this is also a nice little adaptation, if you ask me, to the top side. It's a great jump cut by Kyron Williams for real. And this certainly has a duo look to it. But on the previous play, not only did you have the first one I showed you, not only was Nakua stepping inside to go get Patrick Queen, but Cooper Kupp was also stepping inside of the right tackle to go try to help out on the backside, presumably against the nickel. Watch what Cooper Kupp does this time. He releases outside of Clowney. And watch the reaction by Hamilton. Hamilton's not getting involved because he's reading his key. Now, it is a short gain here. I think it's only a 3-yard gain. It's a totally different run path from the same exact play, and it's a slight variation, I think, because at this point, McVay and the Rams understood that Hamilton was reading the slot. And so any step in by the slot here, inside of the B gap, is going to bring Hamilton down a little bit more violently, a little bit quicker. So instead, they just go basically kind of stalk block him and elongate the time that it would take Hamilton to get involved. Like I said, it ends up being a 3-yard gain. I think it's a slight variation, adjustment, if you will, to the first play because Hamilton's read, the slot, Kupp, didn't insert into the B gap. He just released outside. I think it's a very subtle thing. Maybe I didn't explain it well, but I think the slight differences in how the slot wide receiver releases and then the ensuing cutback on that play, for me, is enough evidence and confirms that McVay has variations to each play, each individual play, and can generate a gap by everybody else, all 10 guys doing the same thing, and one player doing something different. I would liken it to some of the defenses in the NFL who have 3 or 4 or 5 versions of cover 3. Week 6 against the Steelers, same exact setup, 11 personnel like always. I think the Rams are 11 personnel 93 or 95% of the time. So it's ace or red or blue, depending on terminology, with the tight end wing down into the boundary. And I love the all-22 angle here because it's kind of elevated. Gives us a great view of what these guys do post-snap and who they're putting in conflict. Nakua is a little bit wider, still going to insert. He's going to go up and get Minkah Fitzpatrick, 39. So again, they're forcing the boundary side corner, in this case Joey Porter Jr., to get involved. They've got a typical or traditional look, the 3 and the 9. Watch Porter's eyes for a moment. So his key is Nakua, naturally. It's the same thing as what I talked about on the other side with Kyle Hamilton. I'll try to run it back a couple of times, but you'll be able to see Porter Watch him key Nakua and react to it. It's traditional. It's what he should be doing. Look at the helmet, looking right at Nakua at the last second. As soon as Nakua goes to Jill insert, basically an exchange where the tight end is blocking the D end outside linebacker out, and Nakua is releasing inside. That's a trigger, a key for Porter to go ahead and look to the inside to look to try to get involved with the tackle. Now, I think it's also possible that Nakua is reading a part of this on the run. It could be a design feature whereby if the front side inside linebacker disappears, in this case goes A gap, you're going to leave him alone. Remember the first play I showed you, he went to block Patrick Queen, ended up on the ground, but he still did his job if you ask me. If the front side inside linebacker disappears, we'll go on ahead and work up to the safety, which in this case happens to be Fitzpatrick. The Rams, McVay, are forcing the boundary side safety to step up in order to deal with this play, which is a low-risk play. I would liken it to a jab, a quality jab, in a combat sports environment. On the opening play of the video that I showed you, the safety, Marcus Williams for the Ravens, was at like 12 yards depth. Look at Fitzpatrick here, and I think he's connected to the inside linebacker with the inside linebacker going A-gap. I believe it's possible that Nakua is reading this on the run, working up to the safety because he knows the inside linebacker to that side disappeared. This one ends up being, I think, a 7-yard gain for, I think, Henderson. The boundary side edge player is in a tremendous bind here from an assignment standpoint. So you're playing the exterior gap. We're going to let it highlight through. You're playing the exterior gap if you're that edge defender right there dealing with the tight end. There's a lot of stress there because if you were to dive inside, well, then now you've got an unblocked corner who's got to make the tackle. Well, we've seen that that's what McVay wants. He wants that corner to be unblocked. This concept is extremely similar to weak side belly out of the wing T, and I think the Rams are taking advantage of the numbers. Basically, if you can't get a fourth guy involved at the point of attack who can and will tackle, meaning make the tackle, then you are not going to stop this Jill ISO play from being a quality jab that sets up other concepts. I actually have a couple of videos I'd like to show, but really I'm going to probably be forced to just do an overhead diagram. I didn't get permission to use the wing T plays. So the play that I'm talking about will look different from obviously what you've seen on the screen. You might say, Coach, it looks nothing like it. So we're talking about the F, the fullback here, and the wing T, which will be Kyron Williams or Henderson, not a fullback clearly. But conceptually, it's a single back. It's one guy back behind the quarterback who's on the midline in a two-point stance, which is what McVay has his guys in. The difference is wing T fullback is closer, which is why my diagram shows him closer. But on the screen, the pics and videos that you're seeing, the tailback, halfback, is far deeper. But the insert is the H, inserting between the D tackle, it should say D tackle, not TE, and the end. And there's a cross block occurring, which is slightly different from what we're seeing in terms of the blocking scheme. But the point is, if there's no fourth defender there, you're not going to stop the play. The fourth defender either needs to be the Mike or the free safety. And in this diagram here, which is kind of the reverse because I run it to the strong side now, the fourth defender is the boundary side corner, in this case, Joey Porter. Hopefully the way that I said all of that makes sense. It's basically an inside run play, off tackle, C-gap, where the tight end here is stepping out. But in the diagram I'm showing you, there is no tight end. There is no extra player, so they're kicking out the end with the left guard who pulls and kicks out. So hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Essentially, if you don't have a fourth defender, you're not going to be able to stop this play consistently enough to prevent McVay from establishing it and then using the complementary plays off of it. Certainly not a foolproof concept, don't get me wrong. You will get two dominant reps or plays here by the Giants' defensive tackles. I think the Rams won this game like 26-24 or 26-25. They only went 2 of 8 on third downs, but they averaged 6.5 yards per play. I think 6.5 or 6.7, something like that. Now, this one didn't help that average, all right? The canted D tackle here destroys the center, and you'll see the center kind of in some one-on-one situations have trouble getting push or any lateral movement at all. From a nickel platform, the Giants have canted a D tackle here, and he's going to be one-on-one with the center. And then they've got a 3 technique to the tight end wing side and a 9 technique. The same thing that I said defenses are generally forced to line up with. The jump through kind of occurs too quickly. I mean, the jump through from the first level to the second level with 73. I'm talking about 73 working up to the front side inside linebacker. And as a result, both of these guys have won their matchup. No push, no lateral movement at all. And Nacua on the return motion to insert. Yeah, he gets to work up to someone, but it really doesn't matter at this point. There's absolutely nothing there. The Giants have built a wall and given Kyren Williams nowhere to go. I'm showing you this one primarily to illustrate how on certain plays, McVay tries to mask the intentions. And what I mean by that is you got bunch to start, a shift to ace or red or blue. Nacua then motions across. He's trying to get this inside linebacker to move a little bit to create more of a seam when Kyren Williams theoretically gets downhill on that type of track right there. I kind of drew a bad angle there. That inside linebacker didn't budge, but that's not what stopped the play. The two defensive tackles winning cleanly in the case of the canted nose tackle against the center was what was really the issue in this situation. Another one, the same game against the Giants, similar play design, in fact, except Nacua starts on the other side. He starts in a trip set to the downside of the screen, still under center, obviously still 11 personnel. Downhill run to the tight end side, ends up being a touchdown for Kyren Williams. Into the boundary, where the tight end is. Nacua didn't originate here. His feet would have generally been something like that area. Step inside into the C gap, go lead up. Either the front side corner is unblocked or the front side safety is unblocked. He would generally go get the front side inside linebacker if the linebacker is in that alignment. But Nacua started from the other side of the field. Doesn't really play a role, to be honest with you, in the success of this play. But if the point is, it's going to the boundary. The zone or the duo scheme is what ends up, I think working here. The zone blocking aspect, even duo, is different from the X block gap scheme, if you will, that I showed in the wing tee picture. It's important to mention that, I guess, it's just really a different way to cook the meal. You're eating a steak, whether you grill it, pan sear it, or cook it in an oven and then sear it, you're still eating a steak. Maybe you're eating it a different way than I am. The gap versus zone scheme thing to me doesn't matter. When I say it doesn't matter to me in terms of whether the play succeeds or not. The personnel grouping and the formation allows McVay to get a numbers advantage. Sometimes it's not a +1. Sometimes you're only up a half a man. Under center, one back with a lead blocker, difficult to do if you're in 11 personnel. You've got to have receivers that are capable and willing to masquerade as a wing, which is pretty unique in this day and age to find that player. They found it in Puka Nacua and others as well. As an aside, during the course of this video, we'll find out if we have any wing tee gurus in here, because some will say that the play that I'm offering to you, wing tee belly, is not conceptually the same thing as this because it's more similar to down. Down is a strong side run play, which is where Sean McVay is running the football here to the tight end wing side into the boundary. But it involves a kick out. There's no ISO. There's no lead blocker like you have in the case of Nacua. The timing on down is also a little quicker than belly, which I suspect the timing here is elongated intentionally by McVay to create more conflict in the second level defenders. But I understand if there'll be people who disagree with me saying that it's similar to wing tee belly. So this is a tight tray alignment now. So we've got a third different alignment to get this done. Tight end, two receivers, tight end trips we call tray. I say tight tray, it could be bunch tray, whatever. You get this dummy motion across the front. When I say dummy, it's because they're not handing the ball off to Cooper Kupp on this sweep, this jet sweep across the field. Formation is tight tray to the field. So the tight end is in the wrong side here. He's to the field side now, which is generally so far he's been to the boundary. Nacua is there as well. Nacua was stationary pre-snap, but he's still ISOing, inserting into the C gap, and then going to get the nickel defender located here. Pull it back, let you see Nakua's post-snap movement a couple of times. The tight end stepping out to the D end, outside linebacker. Nacua stepping inside. The center is really getting stood up here again by the nose tackle, meaning there's no movement laterally or vertically, anything like that. And the nose tackle is the first guy to make contact with Williams. One thing to mention here, and I kind of alluded to it a couple of moments ago, is timing. The wing tee has beautiful elements in terms of timing. For example, when the quarterback turns his back to the defense, you'll oftentimes get 2 or 3 guys in your line of sight if you're an inside linebacker, one of the key defenders. So the quarterback potentially handing the football off could be in the line of sight, and the only guy I can really use here is this DB to the boundary. Now, he only has the quarterback and then the running back in his field of view, in his line of sight. What I'm describing is in the wing tee, oftentimes there would also be a pulling lineman from one side or the other who would be, for example, maybe his feet here, probably closer to the line of scrimmage, who would also be in the line of sight at the exact moment that you want your player to see who has the football. So it's an example where you, in your direct line of sight, you have 3 players, the running back, the quarterback, and the pulling lineman. So your linebackers or strong safety can't discern who has the ball. Not exactly the case here, but you still get some similar elements to it because of the timing. So we'll look at the 2 DBs on opposite sides right before Williams gets the football. So right here, we're talking about this defender to the boundary and this defender through the field. Now, this is the guy that Nacua ends up going to go dig out as a blocker. But the DB to the side where Kupp motioned to the boundary, he's got to hold his eyes if he's tasked with looking for the football. He could have to deal with this motion. What's he not looking at? The ex-receiver who is assigned to block him. Naturally, he shouldn't be looking there. And that's the guy who goes to get him to try to prevent him from getting involved in the play. Doesn't deliver a big block. If you're wondering why I showed so many different versions, so many different motions that lead to the same play concept, the Jill ISO, the Z receiver, inserting inside of the C gap between the tackle and the tight end, because I think it's a foundational part of what they do, and McVay has found or produced a number of ways to hide the concept behind as many formations and motions as possible, because from that platform, it allows the offense to branch off into so many other concepts that really would be considered complementary. Of course, what I'm talking about is the play action pass concept. So we'll let some of these flow through while I talk about some data that I collect. There's a whole lot of motions that are utilized in this offense. I'm talking about the under center compressed formations is when I say this offense. Of course, there's other parts of it. Third down pass plays, known pass plays. This is sequential based, if you ask me, where depending on how the defense reacts to a certain motion or a play, the Rams can respond with the various complementary plays off of it that make sense. Basically, it's a shell game within an actual football game that involves probably 10 or 12 of these foundational situations. Show this if then, meaning if they do A, we counter with B. If they do C, we counter with D. And in this case, it's the head coach who calls the plays, but oftentimes at the NFL level, it's just an offensive coordinator. McVay can put out a formation, an initial play to see how the defense reacts, and then he's got already low-risk plays built in to counter it. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit about the low-risk stuff. If you're a Rams fan, feel free to let me know. Watching your team, just like for me with the Ravens, it probably feels like you turn the football over more than you actually do. I'm not against RPOs, the modern option game. Zone read, QB counter read is actually bash, what people call bash. It's one of my favorite plays. But just on my glance from the 8 games that I have of the Rams in 2023 and some of the film that I had from previous years, it seems like they lower the risk of turnovers with a lot of their concepts, their under center concepts. Now, I don't know that for sure. I've never heard McVay speak on it. I've never read articles that explain it in that way. This is my impression based on the film that I've watched and the really long film study that I did in June that some of you may have checked out. I had the thought while going through that process that the Rams had built-in control factors for many things, and limiting risk, avoiding turnovers, was one of them. So I searched for some data, and in 2023, Rams are 24th in the league in turnovers, 24th lowest, I guess, least, just 18 turnovers. At 13 interceptions between the three quarterbacks and then 5 fumbles lost. In 2022, the year before, so 2 seasons ago at this point, definitely a different year for the Rams record-wise. They committed 23 turnovers. That was the 9th most compared to last year, 2023, which was the 6th least, I think, if I said that right. Rewind back to their Super Bowl season of 2021, the year before, they turned the ball over 23 times exactly. Again, you got a 3-year sample size there, 21, 22, and then 2023 last year. On average, a little bit above 21 turnovers per year. That would generally be located in the lower third of the NFL each season. I went back 5 seasons. It would be between the 20th and 25th least amount of turnovers per season. Is this a low-risk offense? Well, no, not in every situation. The under-center compressed run game and complementary play-action pass game, I do think, are consistently low risk. And I think not only does McVay utilize these concepts to lower the risk of turnover, it also eliminates a lot of negative yardage plays. I'm not just talking about the run concepts, the play action as well. How much do you think the under center run concepts and the resulting play action pass plays are not just created and crafted by McVay and his staff to gain yards, to move the football, to put the defense in conflict? How much of a consideration do you think it was to mitigate turnovers and create, as a floor, a lot of 2nd and 7s, as opposed to less 2nd and 10s, 2nd and 9s? Maybe I'm not explaining it well, but by extension, and I'm really not saying that the Rams run the ball all the time on first down, because they clearly don't. McVay actually gets criticism for sometimes being too pass happy. They did open the Ravens game with 9 consecutive runs. There seemed to me in the data that I have, and I don't have it categorized the way I have Ravens data and Lions data categorized, there seemed to be a lot more 3rd and 3s or 3rd and 4s for this team. And again, that's just my impression. With the 8 games that I've watched, I didn't filter or categorize it. I think I showed this earlier, but this is what I do for Ravens and Lions film, is categorize the data with personnel group, formation, backfield strength, play type, concept, direction. There's more that's off screen, to your right, that you can't see. I wanted to enlarge it so you could see it if you were looking on a phone or something. Again, I can't prove it. As a Rams fan, you probably have more knowledge of it specifically than me. For the Ravens, I feel like they're less risk averse with their offense than the Rams are. Meaning the Ravens are more willing to be in 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10 than the Rams are when McVay is operating out of the under center compressed formations that are heavily run oriented and play action built off of it. The Lions, not so much. I'd say the Lions are a little bit more balanced, closer to the Rams in terms of how much risk they are willing to undergo to gain yards on first down. Hopefully I'm explaining this in a way that makes sense, and I wish I had more time to track the data for the Rams, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. My suspicion that I'm offering to you, based on the 2 film study videos I've done this summer about the Rams, is that McVay wants to control or exert as much control as possible in the scheme, in the play call on individual snaps. That seems obvious, right? That's what all offensive coordinators do. But the particular scheme he's using under center, compressed formations, the plays he runs does limit turnovers and negative yardage plays, and conceptually that resembles the wing tee. And that is how I tried to circle back here. Historically, that system, the wing tee, is known as an order of football. That's actually a book, the name of a book by Tubby Raymond. It suppressed turnovers, set up the offense to control the clock to an extent that you could force the defense to defend the width of the field via the run game and the pass game at the flank, basically waggle pass. and also use a sequential based play calling system that was on film that scared the defense into overcommitting too much to one side or the other. And I feel like I noticed that dynamic as well, particularly from the Ravens. I thought the Ravens defense early in the game against the Rams last year, I don't want to say played scared from an individual player standpoint, but it seemed as if they were unwilling to overcommit to a particular key because there was complementary plays that could have attacked the other side. That's when I say sequential based plays, I mean a system of 5 or 6 plays that can attack to the right or left of the offensive formation. I don't really get into the whole, the Rams moved away from the wide zone or outside zone to gap schemes. Whatever you want to call that stuff, I don't care. This is a system that has a progression of plays, or a tree, if you will, and that tree can branch out in different directions depending on the defense's alignment or the particular strengths and weaknesses presented. That sounds very generic. There's a process to this under center attack. I think the Jill ISO is a part of it. I've likened it to a jab multiple times. There's methodology, and McVay has previously installed answers to whatever you as a defense come up with. This was a very fun offense for me to try to understand, and I'm still in the process of it because it's set apart from my Ravens and Lions analysis. I'm doing so because with an eye towards the week 1 matchups between the Ravens and the Chiefs, and then the Lions hosting the Rams in a rematch of their playoff game. Now, I would really like to get a video done, and I have about 12 plays saved up as this. This will be my final thought, so forgive me if this ending was too elongated. I have about 12 plays saved up where I suspect that Stafford has checked from under center to shotgun, or vice versa, meaning they lined up, the Rams offense lined up under center, defense showed a particular alignment, and Stafford appeared to check something. Everyone shifted to a shotgun. Generally, you're talking about pass plays that ensue thereafter. Or the reverse. They line up in shotgun. Defense shows a particular formation or alignment. Stafford makes a check to under center. I do wonder what the tendency is there for predictability. That's really the next video that I'm going to show. How many times does that happen? That's the next video I'm going to try to organize or show. How many times does that happen in the course of a game? My guess, 3, maybe 4, where it's that obvious. More often, you get quarterbacks and players changing the play call, but you don't really notice it as much because the offensive coordinator has called 2 plays. I do wonder if McVay does a lot of that. I don't think he does, and I could be really way off base there. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. If he is a guy who calls 2 plays and lets Stafford get up there and call Ricky, Lucy to indicate the run play or the pass play or right or left or whatever. Anyway, you guys let me know what you think of the video, how I chose to package the Jill ISO concepts with a little bit of play action flavor shown in at the end to help you to see the same motion, same formation, same motion. It could be a run play, could be a pass play to basically freeze the defense in many cases, I think. Paralysis by analysis, because they recognize the width and depth of the under center offense that McVay has created and crafted over the course of the years there with the Rams. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Rams fans would enjoy this film study look at the under center Jill ISO concept, how they utilize a receiver to basically mimic old school wing T concepts, belly, essentially, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.